income people that we serve. So I'm Sue Minter, and I'm the executive director of Capstone Community Action. So proud, and I will say, I am sporting a brand new top because my daughter and her boyfriend, who is Mexican, just visited us for the first time seeing them for 10 months, and they brought me this gift. So I'm so happy to be shining that sunny flower with you all today. I'm going to tell you quickly what our plan is in this 1 hour, and I'm going to give you a super high level who is Capstone Community Action. Essentially, we are an anti poverty organization, been around since 1965, trying to do sort of a two-pronged approach to meeting people in crisis and also moving people out of crisis and into economic security and stability. And we meet people in crisis with food security, housing supports, fuel supports, and our movement out of poverty evolves around workforce development. Helping people with their families through Head Start and their homes through weatherization, and a whole slew of what we call financial empowerment programs. So that's a super quick bullet on who we are. And I have to say, what an extraordinary year we have been through and are still moving forward in. You know, within a few days, just like all of you, we were thrust into the worst public health crisis of our lifetimes. So here at Capstone, we literally had to adapt quickly, innovate all of our delivery modes of service delivery, and continue to sustain access to the most vulnerable Vermonters that we serve. So as we start to recover some sense of normalcy for those of us around this call, our hope is to reflect a little bit today with you on our pandemic experience at Capstone, and most importantly, why we are inspired not by the old, but by the new and what is possible. So we'll be doing a little bit of a little, not dog and pony show, but I'm going to have some slides. We're going to have a video. Thank you for those who joined early enough to see some of our other videos. And we are going to leave time at the end for questions and answers and hopefully conversation with you. I'd like to right now introduce Lily Platt, who is the person behind the scenes helping to make this day possible. But Lily is an intern with us at Capstone Community Action this summer. She is actually on a gap year on her way to Middlebury in the fall. We're so proud of her and impressed and inspired by her work. She is actually a program director of school programs for an organization called Rooted Organizing Community. And this is a nonprofit social justice organization centered around supporting the resettlement of immigrant families here in Vermont. And she is working with us as an intern now, specially focused on running our Vermont Everyone Eats program. And you will learn more about it and see some of her work later in our show. So Lily, why don't you go over the logistics of today?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to virtually meet you. And I also just want to say it's such an honor and delight to get to work with you, Sue. Um, yeah, such a powerful and brilliant woman and boss. So thank you, Sue, for all that you do. Um, and yeah, I'm going to be talking a little bit through the tech logistics now. Um, if you can, please stay muted for the entire time Sue is presenting. Um, you can send questions throughout the presentation in the chat to everyone, or you can chat just me. I'll be keeping track of those. And at the end of the presentation, there will be time to ask your question live, to have a conversation, or I can read your question aloud for you. So the chat is open. And I'm really excited to be sharing the work of Capstone with all of you. I'm going to hand it back over to Sue, and I'll be the one handling the tech on this call. Nice to meet you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lily. So where to begin? What a year. One of the defining moments of this year for me was really the first few days of our crisis. Never have we been through anything like this before, but never have we depended on one another more. And you will hear some of the overriding themes of collaboration with our community partners. I'm not even going to talk about in great detail what we are doing in all of our normal programming, internal, which is extraordinary and frankly has been growing exponentially, thanks in large part due to federal and state support. But I'm going to focus on the collaborations that we initiated and helped lead and be a part of, and also some of the innovations that I think have been so important and frankly are in great part a result of the philanthropy of many of you. Next slide. So, collaborations as everything began in Washington County and in Lamoille County, and we do serve also Orange and Northern Windsor County. But in these two counties in particular, we moved swiftly into what we call an incident command system. And I served, as some of you know, as in the transportation agency during Irene, and then as the recovery officer after that disaster, and learned how critically important this organizational structure, incident command, is for being an effective response. And so we actually got trained by some former colleagues of mine in incident command. We brought all of the organizations with whom we partner around service delivery, both in Washington and Lamoille County, and we became trained in incident command and established two command centers. One is called Wanack Rock, that's the Washington Northern Orange County Regional Response Center. And then in Lamoille, the Lamoille Area Health and Human Services Response Command Center. Sorry for the funny names. It relates to sort of FEMA speak that's important when you're trying to get FEMA funding for some of the work you do. And you see the results here by the numbers, the meals served, the number of people we helped get housed safely into hotels, the emergency housing work that we did. We became a community resource center. People made masks. We had special sanitizers. All of this centered around both the partnerships and the structure of collaboration through the incident command and Capstone itself as a center of great support. Next slide, please. As time went on, we actually got tremendous support from the State Emergency Operations Center around the feeding of the hotel guests. Capstone's Community Kitchen Academy had been repurposed into a mass feeding center. We had 80 plus volunteers on a daily basis distributing meals to the hotels. This went on for months, but luckily the state stepped up and started contracting not just in Washington and Lamoille County, but across the state. So great kudos to them. I'll get back to that at the end because I'm very much hoping they continue that even when the governor lifts the emergency order. But that's something else than right this minute. This slide really presents our focus as a collaborative action network in housing. You will see we are called the Washington County Homeless Task Force. We have been meeting every single week, sometimes several times a week since the pandemic began, focused on this very complicated story of housing. In the bottom, you really see how much is involved in helping people just have secure homes. It takes a village. It's about food, it's about medical support, tech support. We had clothing, transportation, so many things we did, not just for the folks in the hotels, but those who have been insecurely housed. Just a moment, please. And that need for a collective vision of how to support people is something that we have learned as a collaboration, and I'll get back to in a moment about where we go from here. I do want to mention that we were at, if you can go back to the former slide, the one with the housing. This group has been, that was it, perfect, thank you. This group has been also providing testing for the folks in the hotels, vaccination clinics for the folks in the hotels, getting them to their appointments. We've been trying to get them primary care physicians, you know, a very broad range of things. And you can see here, we have at this moment in Washington County, this is a focus on Washington County, over 300 residents in our area hotels with insecure housing. We have worked tirelessly and have actually developed 67 new units of affordable housing. So we're making progress. A lot more on the horizon we can talk about, but you see it's a drop in the bucket, and that's an ongoing concern and goal and vision for us. Next, please. So this is really about this wonderful program called the Vermont Everyone Eats program. And this was a result, really 100% kudos to the legislature and then the support of the administration. But in the waning hours of the former session, not the one that just passed, and I would say that session continued for, went into sort of a second phase, but there were CARES Act dollars, federal dollars to invest in supporting people through crisis. And thanks to the leadership of the legislature, they said, yeah, we're going to give a shot to this idea of creating a statewide effort to pay restaurants who were suffering to make nutritious meals sourced by local farms, local food, to actually distribute to families who had food insecurity. And in central Vermont, we became a food hub for this Everyone Eats program. We were one of 14 food hubs all around the state. In our region, Lamoille, Washington, and Orange counties, we provided 5,000 meals per week on average. You see the numbers here. Since the beginning, we have provided over 82,000 meals, 173,000 meals. And the really exciting part is the partnership. If you look at that list on the right, we now have 42 different distribution partners with whom we connect every single week to distribute food to those in need. And some of the hubs around the state became a place where people could drive to a location to receive meals. But we have become more convinced than ever. One of the many lessons learned is that we need to get food out to people, and that we have an unbelievable array of partners with whom to do it. Next slide, please. And just to show you the restaurants, many different restaurants throughout the region became participants. I want to recognize especially Skinny Pancake that created, that were our key partner. They created a 501c3 called Shift Meals, and they worked with all of the restaurants to engage them. And we, Capstone, worked with the distribution partners to do the delivery part. But when you look at the whole picture, on the left, community investments, over $1 million, almost $2 million invested right into our community, into the restaurants and the workers that were able to stay employed because of this program. We had over 30% of the food that was nutritious food delivered was from local Vermont sources. We also use this as an opportunity to distribute freezers to our partners that will remain in place. And 67% actually of the restaurants said that they were able to employ their workers just through this program. So key program. And we're going to show you, and this I need to credit Lily. Lily has been really documenting the work of this incredible program with some of the partners. We're going to share YouTube because I think there's 13 different interviews, spotlights, but we've chosen 3 from the 3 different regions to really highlight some key elements of this program and who we're serving through it. Go ahead, Lily. Thank you.
I'm Hannah Ansel, and I'm the Director of Community Health Integration at Lamoille Health Partners. Everyone Eats really fits into the mission of our organization to remove barriers and help people achieve their healthiest lives, and having a variety of services that we can offer to patients right here in our practice really does meet people where they are. We had one family in the fall that all of a sudden found out they needed to quarantine because of COVID exposure. They had a lot of complexity in their household, both medical and financial, lots going on. being able to have meals and not having to worry about going out to get food or having someone that was physically able to cook made a really big difference for them to be able to stay home and stay safe.
I am Hillary Warner. I'm a registered dietitian and a patient care coordinator at Lemoyle Health Partners in Morrisville. One of the most memorable comments that I heard from one of our patients one morning when I was refilling our freezer was, "You're doing God's work," which really meant a lot to me. Everyone in Lemoyle County, everyone in Vermont, no matter what their struggles are, should know that there are people out there who care about them. Lemoyle Health Partners and Everyone Eats are two great shining examples of the care that exists in the state. It's just a fraction of the care that's out there.
I'm Cynthia Stewart, and I am the Executive Director of Faith in Action. We are distributing Everyone Eats meals out of both of our locations in Cabot and Lyndonville, Vermont. Faith in Action is really a Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. We have just enjoyed the Everyone Eats Vermont program so much. We're able to deploy the food, but boy, the folks who are in the restaurants and cooking this food are able to make these lovely, delicious meals, and then we can get it out into the community. We have a food share in Cabot on a Wednesday. We're able to distribute 400 meals within 2 hours. So we know that that food that's getting out there is fresh and it's been made really recently, and it's just able to get it right out into the community. It takes about 20 volunteers that day to make it happen. It works really swiftly, and within 2 hours, we're able to distribute about 200 boxes of food and 400 Everyone Eats meals. Delivering food to the cars in Cabot, we do this one-to-one, and Marlene Wheeler is just this lovely lady who is so excited about getting the Everyone Eats meal. So Marlene, the other day when I went to her car, she said to me, "It's been terrific to get the Everyone Eats meals during this time of being homebound." She always asks what's available, and she really spoke to me about how important this program has been to her during the pandemic. It has allowed them to have something to look forward to and a nice, healthy, nutritious meal, and it's allowed some interaction when she comes to pick it up, which is also important to help with that socialization during this time when folks are homebound. We'd like to really thank everyone who's part of the Everyone Eats program. We appreciate the folks who have coordinated this work, the restaurants who have cooked the meals, all the nonprofits that are deploying the meals out in the community and making sure they're getting to folks who have been impacted by the pandemic. It's been a fabulous experience to be part of this collaboration.
My name is Amanda Powell. I am the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board AmeriCorps member, or VHCB AmeriCorps member, serving at Good Samaritan Haven. We are a low barrier homeless shelter that just really strives to meet people where they're at and offer a variety of services in our continuum of care. Homelessness is a condition that arises as a symptom of multiple things, and so exploring the intersection, really being able to address what those issues or needs are with each of our guests is something that's super important to us. So our relationship with Everyone Eats looks a little different than other sites since we are a emergency shelter. So the Everyone Eats meals they're sort of like a staple in our household, I would say. So they're just always there for anyone who wants them at any time. There was a time when Everyone Eats was the only meal that we had in the house. It was the only food that we were providing just because we wanted to be as cautious as possible. I remember back when I was doing evening shifts and we would just set all these meals out and they all looked great. People would just come and pick their favorite one, and it was just a great way to do dinner and a very efficient way for our staff. It's been a really difficult year for the homeless population in Vermont. It's created more of what was already a housing crisis. There's nowhere to really go with people, and this pandemic has shown us a lot of weak points in our systems. The Everyone Eats program is phenomenal. It's so amazing. it's done so much good supporting us through this like wild time. I came into Good Sam during the pandemic, and I don't know how we would have managed to coordinate food services. They're so nutritionally balanced as well, and I love that they support like the local community. Like Vermont is one of those states that just has this like great ethic of community care, and I think that's really reflected in the Everyone Eats program.
So I hope you learned a little bit about the incredible depth of this program and how in our region we've been able to reach far and wide with partners in the faith community, partners in the health and mental health community, partners with serving homeless folks, and many beyond, including our Head Start. I want to just acknowledge again Lily Platt, who our intern, who has just been quite an extraordinary gift to us and sort of that hope for the future. One of our strategic plan goals is to sort of bring into the community action movement the next generation of leaders. So we're thrilled to have her with us. Next slide, please. I want to mention that Capstone is part of a much larger network around the state of community action agencies. We are one of 5 community action agencies, as you see on this map. And we work as one network. It's called the Vermont Community Action Partnership, VCAP. And we had a really great success this year. And again, great appreciation to our partners in the legislature who really supported not just the ongoing work of our micro business development program, but also a swift response to get stimulus grants out to these businesses. These are very small businesses of low income eligible clients who actually their way out of poverty is to create their own business. And it's an amazing and beautiful program because it is both an economic stimulus program, which is key in our recovery right now. The way we are going to get out of recession is by building new businesses. And when we can give our clients the tools to fulfill their dream of entrepreneurship, we have one-on-one counseling, and it's one of many financial empowerment programs, but it's one that we saw a role for during the immediate response, and the legislature partnered with us, and with support from the administration, we gave out over $2 million in grants, in very small grants, maximum of $5,000. To over 400 of these struggling businesses. These really helped keep people afloat and keep these folks from going further into into poverty in which they would then need all the other services that we often talk about. So I wanted to mention how important our work is, not just in our region, but statewide as we collaborate with the Community Action Network. Thanks. Next slide, please. So I wanted to mention this wonderful, another collaboration with the Department of Health. Our Head Start program in Berry City hosted a vaccination clinic. And now we see vaccines everywhere, but at the time we did our clinic, we didn't. And we really see our role, and still, but especially early on, the folks we serve were the most hesitant folks that the state was concerned about reaching. And very proud that we actually were able to vaccinate we had 58 vaccinations. We had the Moderna, so that took 2, so we had to recruit people back. 94% of the people came back, which the state told us was a great response rate. Our overwhelming majority of the participants were our Head Start students and family members, and also people that they recruited. So we kind of converted some people from being very hesitant to being a real cheerleader, even in spite of family members who weren't supportive of them. It's been a great asset to our work to be able to help ensure safety of our community directly. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just touch briefly on sort of where do we go from here? You know, we reflect on, you know, what has been, I think, for all of us, the worst year of our lives. And yet, there are many things we treasure about this year as well. And that's a complicated story, but at Capstone, we're learning so many lessons. And so we want to take some of those lessons forward. And some of the ways that we see that is through our great partnership with actually the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston has invested in the state of Vermont with a program called the Working Communities Challenge Grant. It was a competitive process. You can go back to that other slide. And that process was so interesting because something like 23 communities applied, about 8 got interviewed, and then 4 were selected. And we're so proud that Capstone was a part of 2 of the 4, one in Lamoille County, one in Washington County. And they are all about systems change for ensuring not just support and growth for the folks who need additional support, but success and economic independence. So I can talk further about each of those, but we are just getting going on now a 3-year program in both Lamoille and Washington County, separate programs, but all about collaboration and helping people who struggle be successful in work long term. We're also thinking big about transportation and mobility and equity. And this is an issue that actually began before the pandemic as really one of the gaps in all of the services we provide for folks who struggle. Transportation is actually cited by all of our participants in our surveys, by my interviews with other nonprofit directors, as this terrible barrier that really keep people in poverty. And for many, it's really the second, other than housing, it's the second barrier of, you know, total need, but there is a difficult barrier to address. And I have to say, during this pandemic, getting people to the hospital, getting people to safe clinics, you know, the need for transportation for those who lack it is extraordinary. So we are working on a big project. We thank many in the philanthropic community for believing in us. Our vision is to have a fleet of all electric vehicles that is a car share that focuses on getting people to work, partnering with employers, and getting people to all of the other things they need and they cannot afford a car, a ride hailing like an Uber. I like to call it Ruber, the rural Uber. So that's our vision. We'll keep you posted on it. We've applied for an earmark and you never know. We may just get a good jump start on that critically important innovation. I also want to talk about food security. Obviously, we have invested a lot. We put a whole position in play, an internship, partnerships with Everyone Eats, but it goes far beyond that. We're really looking at the reality that interestingly, the number of people coming to our food shelf declined. And there are a number of reasons for that. But we realize we can't expect people to come to a place and across that barrier of stigma to find food, but to really identify those people and go to them. This idea that we have is a food shelf without walls. So we are initiating right now a pilot program. Again, philanthropy has helped make this possible. We are delivering, in addition to Everyone Eats, a special program to the family center in Orange County who haven't had access to any of these meals. Our Community Kitchen Academy, as you see here, provides those meals. So this is one of many new transportation food security pilots that we're exploring. We also applied for an earmark for some new ideas with all of our FQHCs, our community health centers, to be doing a food as medicine program. We'll see where that goes. I'll quickly mention climate justice. I'm so honored to be a member of the Vermont Climate Council, which is working incredibly hard. Thanks to the legislature to really advance a plan to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And in its Global Warming Solutions Act that established the council, they also established a subcommittee on a just transition. So how do we actually address climate and center equity in the policies and programs that will get us to this next future? I am proud to be the co-chair of this subcommittee. You will learn more. We're trying to really define what does equity look like in this discussion, and that is, again, an important discussion. You know, I think our transportation program speaks to that because we are trying to both advance the electric vehicle fleet and address the barriers of people in poverty. But that's sort of the future vision, some of the things we're working on. Next slide. And I really want to sort of close with this thank you and really help you understand how, for an organization like Capstone, philanthropy has been essential. You know, I made a lot of quick decisions and, frankly, very financial risks, took many risks because Capstone had to foot the bill of this whole incident command center. We repurposed all of our staff on that center away from their grant funded positions, which means I had to figure out how are we going to pay for all this. And when we innovate with a new idea that you just heard a few of, we don't know how to pay for it. We don't have grants for it. You know, 90% of what we do is grant funded. But knowing that we had the backs, you all had our back, has been essential, and I have to tell you, like, incredibly inspiring. We honestly have never experienced the outpouring of support and this power of philanthropy that we have seen in this last year. We established an emergency relief fund, and you helped fill an empty bucket. We set a very ambitious goal for our annual Fuel Your Neighbors campaign, and you exceeded our wild expectations. You know, when I came into this job, we raised about 50,000 for that every year. We raised that in my first year to 100,000. The next year, 200,000. We could never imagine achieving 300,000. You filled that bucket to 400,000. I can't even tell you what it means to the people, especially the frontline staff, who are so often having to say no to people in desperate situations. And I'll just one example of this. You know, we receive federal and state funds for something called crisis fuel. Those are people who can't make it through winter without being cold, without this important support. It's very restricted in who can get it and how much those clients can get. You have to be really, I would say, in extreme poverty. Here's the story. This year, we actually returned some of that money to the state. Why? Because people were receiving other monies and knew that they could use that money and didn't have to rely on this crisis fuel. However, when we received the gifts that you gave us through our emergency response, we created something called the Empowerment Fund, and through the Fuel Your Neighbors. We told our frontline staff, you don't have to say no. If they meet another definition of need and you think you can help them get out of crisis, use it. Do you know we spent $100,000 in that program? No way we could have served. And those are new people who haven't needed our services before or haven't qualified for them. So that's just one example of crisis support. But all those big ideas that you heard in the last slide are really thanks to this power of philanthropy to help us know that we can say yes and not no when a critical need arises, and yes, let's try when a big idea If one thing we know is we will not change if we continue to do the same thing over and over, which is often what our grants are. It's all about innovation. It's about collaboration. And so I just want to say thank you for the hope that you give to so many people in need, and absolutely to all of us at Capstone to do more than we'd ever imagined doing in this incredible year. So I want to just say thank you for the hope and the confidence you have and you give to us. And with that, I think I'm going to stay quiet and open it up for questions and conversation. That was our hope. I think we stayed on time. We have at least about 20 minutes. I want to start by just asking you a question, and I would ask you to write it in your chat. This is a new idea, this virtual meeting place. If you feel like it was beneficial, if you liked it, and if you think we should do it again or more often, please write your thoughts in the chat so we can have a sense of whether this was a good way to spend your noon hour in the middle of the week. And on that, I would ask Lily maybe to come back on and see if there are any questions that have already come in the chat, and you can try to add questions. Or if you have a comment, we welcome that as well. We're sort of hoping that this is more of a conversation than a, back and forth.
Hi, everyone. So I haven't received any questions or comments in the chat, but feel free to send any in now. The first question that we received prior to this meeting is, so many of the small businesses were struggling during this past year. Can you describe the micro business supports you were able to provide?
Yes, thanks so much for that question, because I want to reflect on our entire financial empowerment program, which the micro business development program is a part of. And related to that is also our financial coaching. So when a business is eligible to receive our support, we actually have one-on-one counseling, and it sometimes can go over years that we provide support and resources and ideas and encouragement to our clients. As I said in the earlier slide, this whole program kind of went on steroids, and frankly, it will continue to grow significantly because of the session that just ended, and the new fiscal year that begins in July is actually going to give us more opportunity to expand. And I just want to mention that part of that work includes the financial coaching. Many of the clients who aren't necessarily going to start a business, but may, in fact, amazingly be receiving more money than they have in their lives thanks to federal programs like the child tax credit. Some of them don't have the tools to invest wisely in themselves and their future. So our financial coaching, our money coaching, is available to folks, and this is a whole new level of investment that we are putting into financial coaching, associated and supporting also the business coaching. But I want to tell you about one other little thing because it's important. You may have heard in the news that Bernie's Mitten Match program or Mitten Money program, he raised, I don't know how many millions of dollars with the meme on the mittens from the inauguration. And he donated some of that to the Community Action Network. We at Capstone received a $100,000 donation from Bernie Sanders. And we decided to immediately put this into a new program related to financial coaching, and that's a savings program, a matched savings program for our Head Start families who we know are receiving these tax credits. We are trying to encourage them to learn about budgeting, to learn about credit, to learn about asset building, and to develop a savings account. So we are matching with Bernie's money. We call it the Mitten Match program, 2-for-1. Anything that those Head Start families put in the bank for their family and their future. And we do a similar program statewide, again, thanks to the legislature, where we're able to do 1-for-1 matching. Part of that is for businesses. So we have a whole range of programs now that really we didn't have before to help people become more financially secure, independent. And then for the successful businesses, and we have many of them, they're not only going to survive this pandemic because of the legislative support and the grants that we've been able to get, but they're going to thrive and grow, and we are going to start new businesses. Because as I said before, that's how we're going to get out of the recession. And it isn't just the big businesses and even the small. Micro businesses are defined as 5 employees or less. Most of the folks we serve are independent. They are hairdressers and pet groomers and lawn care specialists. And lots of things in between. If you want to explore, go to mbdp.org, and you are going to see testimonials from hundreds of businesses that receive this support. Micro Business Development Program, mbdp.org. I hope that answered some of the question. I know I meandered a little. Anything else, Lily?
Yes, we did have a few others that were sent in prior. A question that was sent in was, what percentage of the budget will continue to go to weatherization and housing needs?
Great question. So our weatherization program, we didn't even get to talk about that, but that is a program where we, Capstone, along with the other community action agencies around the state, subs for folks who are income eligible, we actually go into homes and improve the efficiency of the home, especially in insulation in the attics and the basements. And sometimes we're able to do more efficiency measures. We're really pushing forward and trying to get cold weather heat pumps, improve the appliances in these homes. But most importantly, we are growing. We are growing because of federal support and even more significantly, state support. Both Governor Scott and the legislature have significantly increased the budget around weatherization, both for low-income families like we serve, as well as higher income, moderate income, and higher income folks in various ways. So for the low income weatherization program that we partner with our CAP agencies on, I believe it is a $4 million increase just in this next fiscal year. What does that mean for Capstone? We actually have 2 programs. One is focused on single family homes, and the other, and the single family home is really in our region. The other is called 3E Thermal, and that is looking at multifamily homes all over the state. So we have actually a statewide contract for that. When you put both of these programs together, we're going to be in the next year weatherizing for income eligible families in multifamily dwellings as well as single family, 425 new homes, in improving their efficiency, reducing their need to consume energy and therefore greenhouse gas consumption and production. And I want to mention, most importantly perhaps, is the air quality improvements and the health outcomes for people in homes that receive this weatherization. So that's the piece on weatherization. Very significant increase in the number of units than we normally do, which is around 200. Now we're looking at 400, over 450. I want to also answer about housing, which is a much more complicated and complex question. We are really focused right now in the next 3 weeks on what's going to happen in the hotels of our area. I mentioned previously in Washington County, we have over 300 people who are housing insecure, who face homelessness without that housing, and who courageously the state has have put into hotels. But now that the pandemic is ending, the program is changing. In Lamoille, it's around 89 people. And honestly, the hotels aren't really in our part of Orange County, but there are other organizations serving that population group. But it's intense because the eligibility to remain in the hotels has expanded than it was before the pandemic. But there will be in Washington County alone about 100 people who will need to exit. So we are having one-on-one interviews, working with our partners who also are doing this to try to have a transition plan and exit strategy. One of the many things we're worried about is food. When the governor lifts the emergency order, which we expect him to do when we reach the 80% of the state has been vaccinated. The money that comes with an emergency order is by the Federal Emergency Management, FEMA, and those dollars will go away unless he decides, and we're trying to advocate for this, to tailor the emergency order in such a way as to keep some of that programming ongoing. And I am particularly focused on the food because I work with all of the regional, the faith leaders, and we're on the phone every single week. Not just through Everyone Eats, but now we're planning what happens when Everyone Eats goes away. That requires the FEMA funding, and all of the hotel feeding that they say is going to go away. We are looking at somewhere in the range of 400 people just in Barre and Montpelier who have currently been receiving meals, sometimes 3 times a day, but sometimes 1 time a day, from those programs all of a sudden going away. So we are trying to stand up, to step up. We're trying to imagine who's going to do what. And this at a time when the churches are still closed. Before the pandemic, that old normal that we don't want to go back to, people relied on churches to do congregate feedings. That's no longer available. So literally all we are trying to do now is see, could any of the churches open up to prepare meals? We, Capstone, are going to try to raise money, so get ready to buy the food and to buy the containers on the to-go containers, and then to mobilize volunteers once again to distribute. It's an overwhelming task, and I will tell you, I'm losing a lot of sleep over it right now, especially because everyone's really exhausted. We've been doing so much and we have so much pride around it, but we're also fatigued. So that's the housing story. In addition to serving homeless folks in the hotels, we're really working with landlords to see, and our partners at Downstreet, to try to create more units, because the biggest challenge is there's nowhere to go. We've got more service supports than we ever have. We're so grateful, but nowhere to go. We're working with Good Samaritan Haven to establish possibly 2 new shelter opportunities in Washington County. It would be incredible. And again, the legislature and the governor have money out there. We're rushing through a local permitting process for these. It's a lot of new opportunity for improvement, but it's a very daunting task as we face this countdown over the next 3 weeks. So that's the housing story.
Next, I'm going to call on Monica McDonald. She shared a comment in the chat about her experience with Everyone Eats. I'm going to add that spotlight. Give me just one tech moment.
Thank goodness we have tech support. Thank you, Lily. And I'm going to recognize Monica because I know her well. She is a tremendous leader. She serves on the Head Start Policy Council, which is the governing council for our whole Head Start program run by parents. And she serves on my board of directors. So I welcome you, Monica.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Sue. I appreciate the moment of time. I just wanted to give a bit of personal thanks to anyone who may have supported the Everyone Eats program, because it was a huge game changer for me and my family during this pretty wild time we've endured. I will keep it short and sweet, but the delivery of those meals, I will say, as a, broad statement, it probably saved our lives time in and time again, because we didn't have the ability to go to the store. We have 5 kids. And at the point at which the pandemic began last year, I was 7.5, about 8 months pregnant with our little guy. And so we didn't have the ability to pack up 4 kids and go to the store. They're all, at that point, they were all under 10 years old. There was nobody available to just drop them off to and run to the store. We didn't feel comfortable bringing them anywhere, and no one felt comfortable with them going anywhere. So to have our Head Start worker just be able to roll up in our driveway, and we're still inside the house, and she delivered these meals on a daily or weekly basis, depending on our need and the availability, directly to our doorstep, to our front porch. And we were able at that point to have nutritious food. It was food that once my son was born, and began eating solid foods, even bridged the gap for him. I was able to, we share these meals almost every day still, because I'm still a busy mom of 5 trying to work from home and live during a pandemic, and it's been vital. And so I wanted to just express, I know you guys heard some amazing kind of big picture stories, but just on a real personal level, my thanks from myself and my family to anyone who supported that program.
And Monica, you see, is just incredible mom. And, she mentioned the Head Start program, which is a home visiting program. And not everybody may realize that a big part of what we do is actually visit homes once a week, with activities and all kinds of support for all kinds of needs. It is a very powerful thing. And so all of our home visitor Head Start teachers were able to provide Everyone Eats meals to many, many families like Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Great to see you. All right, we still have 10 minutes. So if you haven't put in your story or your question in the chat, feel free.
We do have a question from Pat Archibald. I'm going to add her now. Hi, Pat.
Hi. Hi. First, I wanted to thank you for the Zoom presentation, because I learned a lot, and I've been wondering how you managed over the past year. So I think it was very informative. Then I have one question, and that is, do you have a sense for the population of houseless people in Washington County, for example, who do not yet access your services?
We have so many different kinds of services. And right now we are at the area hotels where they are, and we are meeting with every single one of them one-on-one with housing support. So we have a whole team of housing support. And honestly, the federal, now the ARPA money, that's the American Rescue Plan, is enabling us to hire even more people to do exactly that work. And I will just mention that we are both trying to help those folks figure out their next plan of action. Whenever possible, we try to house them either in short-term emergency units, or even shelter, or best of all, of course, an actual housing. And so we do a whole range of supports for them through that. So I would say we have 100% of the people in the area hotels are actually receiving our services. On top of that, many will receive ongoing food. We believe that one of the reasons that our food shelf participation at our Barry Capstone office declined is because many of those people were insecurely housed and using our food shelf, and then became housed there, so they were no longer coming. But we flipped things around and found people who were isolated and needing us. So we started figuring out other ways to find people. But I think that many people don't know anything about Capstone. Is, I think, really your point. If you haven't received direct support because you've needed it, you wouldn't necessarily know about it. And we've been trying to do outreach because there are federal resources. For example, anyone facing eviction, which, by the way, an eviction moratorium will also go into effect when the executive order is lifted. And that means we sort of have this sense of a tidal wave coming with people who have not been paying their rent, either because they haven't been able to afford it. And what we have with this new money is the ability to help pay rent, with the really focused on the landlords. Landlords don't normally look to us for support, but we're trying to reach out to them and connect them with their tenants to help pay any back rent or even forward rent. So we have that, and we're trying to get the word out. And the last thing I'll mention is bringing new units on. There is a program to grant landlords $30,000 to bring a new apartment or unit up to code, if you will house one of the formerly unhoused people. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Or should we call it a close?
Yeah.
I have an idea though, because some of you may have seen, but not all of you, a little video that we made really in the height of the pandemic, just to share what we were trying to do. We're trying to use this new platform. So I thought I would close with my thank you. And then if it's possible, could we go to the video that's about the pandemic, the first one you showed before the thing, and just close with that, because it's a great sort of reflection on where we were about 10 months ago, or maybe a year ago. Thank you all so much for being here. We bless you. We appreciate you. And I hope you'll continue to be a partner with us as we move forward in this incredible time. Thanks. You know, this global pandemic has really brought the mission of community action to the forefront. For 50 years, we've been helping lift people out of poverty, and the need for that work is only growing exponentially right now as we face this economic crisis.
In a very short time period, we were able to bring together community partners who helped us cook, and we were able to get out more than 20,000 meals to folks who needed them.
We got to work so quickly, working to make sure homeless people had a place to stay safe and stay home. We helped them become housed in area hotels. We made sure they were fed. We made sure they had medical care, mental health supports. We got activities for them. And most of all, they remained safe. We became a community distribution center. Capstone has a food shelf, but we also have now hand sanitizer. We got the community to rally and make masks. And I'm enormously proud of the way we came together.
So the Good Samaritan Haven is our local homeless shelter, and they were tasked with moving individuals out of the congregate shelters. So we're talking 90 individuals, and we needed to move them out of congregate settings basically overnight.
While I worry gravely about the future of our homeless population and am dedicated to continuing to be their advocate, I'm concerned just as much with the folks who are unemployed, with the businesses that have now either closed or are on the brink. And what is our role of making sure people have secure employment and a strong economy and community? That's the mission of Capstone Community Action.
Nobody gets to where they are successfully without the help of other people. And I think that that's really what Capstone's strength is, helping those who may not have a leg up or may not have family or support networks to help them out, that's what we do best. It may be that they come to us in the beginning because they need food, or they need housing, or we meet them in the Head Start program. So there are just ways that we meet people where they're at and then help them achieve a better life for them and their families.
No one imagined that we could actually house every Vermonter who is housing insecure. Right now in Vermont, over 2,000 people are in hotels. They have housing, they have medical care, and they have food security. Imagine a world in the future where that's where we go to. We should never go back to what was before, the tremendous disparities of income and opportunity. No, we need to use this as an opportunity to move forward.